Hi, everyone. Okay, these aren't blank slides. I swear there's something coming up here. But it is great to be here this afternoon. I always love coming to speak about ethics in Greece. I feel a little bit of that energy coming up into this talk, so it is wonderful to be here with you all this afternoon. As I was so lovely introduced, my name's Olivia Gambelin. I'm an AI ethicist, and I'm here to talk to you today about AI ethics and responsible AI. But first, I'm used to having a clicker, so I keep wandering away from the computer. I have to go back here. Oh, I have to actually stand in the spotlight. First, I actually want to start with a question. So how many of you in this room have played around with ChatGPT, DALL-E, any of this new generative AI? Yeah, pretty cool, right? I always love asking people how they use this technology. My brother has used it to write school essays. So that has been the, let's say, most scandalous use I've heard of it yet. But it's really cool technology, right? It's very powerful, and it's quite fascinating. We have all of this promise now coming with generative AI. Oh, maybe I'll get a clicker. We have all of this promise coming with generative AI, which makes it really fascinating. But one of the cool things about being an ethicist is whenever there's a new technological development that happens, I seem to be the first person that everybody calls. So back in November, when ChatGPT was released, my phone was ringing off the hook because everyone wanted to, well, not see my slides. Everyone wanted to talk about generative AI. They wanted to talk about not the technology, but the impact that it was going to bring into their life. And I started noticing a theme in all of these conversations. Over and over again, I started hearing a very specific phrase. I was hearing, I'm afraid that I'll lose my job. Or I'm afraid that I'm missing something that will hurt someone. Or I'm afraid that, we're losing control of AI. The important thing here is I was hearing keyboard setup assistant. It's okay. Oh, thank you. Well, I have a clicker now. Maybe we can go. Well, now I've lost where I'm at in the slides. Oh, okay, well, you've already heard this, but the key point is I was hearing over and over and over again, I am afraid. How many of you can resonate with that statement on some level when it comes to generative AI? How many of you have this little bit of fear sitting in your gut? It's okay, you can raise your hands. Now, I say that, and I try and point this out because, first of all, I want you to see that you're not alone. You hear all of this hype around generative AI, but there is still that resident fear that's sitting behind the scenes for all of us. And I want you to start thinking, how did we go from all of this promise of this very fascinating, cool technology? It really is brilliant. But how do we go from all of this promise to such a place of fear? What happened there? And how do we fix that? Well, the good thing and the promising thing is all of us that work in the responsible AI and ethics field, our day-to-day job is working at fixing not that fear, but bringing us back into a place of promise for our technology. We're looking to go from, I'm afraid of what ChatGPT means for the future, to I'm excited about the promise that generative AI and the potential generative AI can bring to my organization, to my daily life. We're working on moving that, let's say, spectrum back over. So, how do we do that? Well, that's going to be what I'm going to talk to you about today. The clicker's working, this is good. So I'm going to talk to you, actually, about the tool of ethics. So when it comes to fixing that, when it comes from moving our use of AI and our technology from this place of fear and risk into a place of promise and potential and innovation, The tool that we're using there is something called ethics. And I'm going to teach you today about how to use that tool. But to start, I actually want to begin with a story of two carpenters. So imagine you have these two carpenters, and the first carpenter, you're teaching both carpenters how to hammer a nail. And the first carpenter, you teach that person the exact action. You tell them, well, you take this part of the hammer and you hit it on this part of the nail, and you use this kind of action with your arm. You teach them the action of hammering the nail. Now, the second carpenter, you teach that carpenter the tool of the hammer. You say, here's the hammer, and here's how it's shaped, and here's how it works, and here's how you can use the different sides of it to apply different forces. Here's how you use the hammer as a tool in order to use the laws of physics and the forces of nature to work for you. Now you give both carpenters a block of wood and a nail. You say, please hammer the nail into the wood. Very basic carpentry, 101. Both of the carpenters have no problem. They say, cool, take the nail, take the hammer the nail into the wood. Great, we're happy, the action was completed. But then you hand both of the carpenters a block of wood with the nail already hammered in, and you ask, can you please remove the nail? Now, the first carpenter has no idea what to do. They weren't taught the other side of the hammer, they weren't taught the action. They're sitting there going, I can hammer the nail further in, I can't take it out, I don't know what to do. But the second carpenter that you taught the tool to, that you actually taught them this is the hammer and how to use it, that carpenter has no problem. They flip the hammer around, they pull it out. This is not cooperating. They pull it out, and they have no problem, right? You taught them the tool. What I want to do with you today is teach you the lesson of the second carpenter. I can stand here and I can teach you actions. I can tell you, well, when you're looking at a data set, you're looking for these indicators in order to recognize and identify this type of gender bias in your data set. I can teach you that kind of action, but I'm only teaching you then a handful of actions. When you walk away out of this door, you're going to know maybe 5 actions, but is that going to help you? It'll help you for those 5 actions, but you're not going to be able to translate that beyond the actions that I teach you. So instead, what I want to do is focus on ethics as a tool, so that when you walk out of this room, you can walk away going, okay, I understand this tool. I know how to use it. I can apply it into any situation. I can apply it for different lessons. I understand how to use this tool. We as humans, we operate in a world that is defined by the laws of physics, but also the laws of morality and ethics. Our values are some of the strongest indicators and decision-making points for us. So let's actually learn how to use those laws of this world, those laws of morality, to work with us when it comes to the development of our technology. Does that sound good? Everyone on board? Cool. That was a test to make sure you're all still awake. So, I want you to take a second and ask yourself, how do I define ethics? I'm not going to ask for volunteers, but I'm going to give you a moment to think. How do you define ethics? This is a term that we're all very, very familiar with. I'm sure you use it on your daily basis. You talk about your values. You say, oh, I like to think I'm an ethical person. I know my morals. I have a moral code, right? But have you ever actually sat down and asked yourself, well, what is ethics? I'm calling this out because ethics for us as humans is something very, very basic. It's something that we engage in on a day-to-day. We're constantly making decisions based off of our values, but most of the time it's subconscious. We're not aware of that decision-making process. It's still happening, but we're not necessarily sitting there and deliberating over it. When it comes to applying ethics in the development of our technology, what we're doing is we are surfacing a very natural conversation, a very natural thinking process to the surface, so that it's not only happening internally, but it can happen within our discussions, within debate. We can pull in multiple perspectives. So, as an ethicist, how I define ethics when I bring it into the context of artificial intelligence and business is I define ethics as a decision analysis tool. Quite literally, a tool. It is something that I look at and go, how can I assess the decisions that I'm making to ensure that they are reflective of our human-centric values? So you're starting to see the theme here with the carpenter. This is our tool. Now, what does this actually mean in action? When it comes to creating artificial intelligence or even using it, you are making thousands upon thousands of decisions. Everything from what kind of business model do we need, or who's going to be using this technology? Where's the data set coming from? How are we labeling it? What's this feature? What model do we want to use? What kind of architecture goes behind this technology? On and on and on. There's a lot of decisions, right? And they're very critical decisions. They're very important. Kind of get this web. It's very pretty. But you have all of these decisions that you're making in order to create your tool. Now, let's zoom in on one of those decisions. What goes into a decision when you are working, either using or building artificial intelligence? It's a lot of different factors. Things like time and cost. You have to invest both time, people, but money as well. There's a lot of resources that go into building not only AI, but software, et cetera, et cetera. We're also looking at potential return on investment. Is this worth the time and cost that we're putting in? What kind of benefit, what kind of impact do we want on the other end of that? We're looking at operationally, how are we going to execute on this? Is it possible? Is it feasible? We're looking at the technical feasibility. Is what we want to do we have the capability to do and achieve the objective with the data and the model that we currently are working on? And even beyond that, we're looking at design and marketing around these tools. How does it look? Who is our target market? You can see there are so many different considerations that go into just one decision around our technology. And I'm going to add one last layer into that, and that's values. So when it comes to implementing ethics into our technology, what we're doing is we're looking at the decisions we're making, and we're adding something called the value layer. We are looking at either specific values or sets of values and saying, how is this decision reflective of this value? So, for example, let's say you were analyzing for privacy. You would quite literally put privacy up here along with these other business and technical considerations. And you go, okay, the decision that I'm making, A or B, which one is better reflective of privacy of our users? We can bring fairness into this. We can bring transparency. All of these different values that you hear, when you are making a decision, you are looking at that and understanding, how does this decision, you're asking yourself, how does this decision reflect the value that I want to implement? Now, there are two different approaches, actually, to that kind of value implementation. And this doesn't mean good and bad. What I want to show you here is everything in life exists on a spectrum, right? You have worst case scenario, dumpster fire, everything's gone wrong. Best case scenario, you're on cloud 9, everything's gone right, you're a unicorn, right? This is the spectrum. In life, our life exists on this spectrum. Our technology exists on this spectrum, meaning we're building an AI tool. We don't want that worst case scenario. That worst case scenario, you are making headlines for seriously screwing up, meaning you've caused significant harm to your user base. You've been discriminatory, you've caused physical harm, you've caused emotional or mental harm. There's a lot of harm that can be generated by these systems. That is worst case scenario. That's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is not necessarily nothing's gone wrong, but push it further. Think everything's gone right, and then some. So not only do we have this system that is technically working, but it is also bringing all of this benefit and positive impact to our target user base, but also to the company itself. That's the other end of the spectrum. Our technology exists on that spectrum. Each one of our tools we can look at and understand, have we prevented those harms? But also, are we really chasing that impact to the full extent that we can? Now, recall that we're looking at our values on this spectrum. Are we preventing problems in accordance to those values, or are we aligning with our values? What I mean by this is risk versus innovation. And what that means when you're considering your values is prevention versus alignment. So when you are assessing, when you are analyzing the decisions that you're making, you are calling in to question a very specific value. And you're asking yourself, have I made sure that that the harms in accordance to this value are being prevented? And have I actually designed the system in a way that is in alignment with this value? So, for example, let's say fairness. You are analyzing for the value of fairness. We can define fairness as equal opportunity, equal outcome, equal quality of service, however you want to define it. But when you're looking at that risk base, that is risk mitigation. You are asking yourself, have we assessed, say, our data sets to ensure that we have prevented unwanted bias from showing up in our models? That's preventing the worst case scenario. On the other end, though, we are looking at, have we fully embodied this value of fairness, which in technology means, how wide is our user base? Because if you have a very set demographic for your user base, it's most likely not a very fair system if it can't be taken and applied to a different demographic of user base. So when it comes to that alignment with fairness, you're opening up and you're better serving a wider demographic, a wider user base. That is on the innovation side. You are aligning your system with that value. So risk is prevention and innovation is alignment. It's important to have both of these approaches, but these are the kind of questions that you're going to be asking yourself when it comes to that decision making, as we so highlighted. Now, I want to run through actually a little example of what it looks like in action when you have the risk versus the innovation approach. Now, we are all sitting here in Greece. We are all international as can be. So I'm sure everyone here has used some type of international messaging app, correct? How many of you use WhatsApp? Nice. How many of you use Signal? Less. So I want to talk to you about WhatsApp and Signal. WhatsApp, I didn't think that would be controversial. There's a lot of whispering going on. So WhatsApp takes a risk approach to privacy. What do I mean by this? Well, WhatsApp actually changes their privacy policy depending on what country you're originating from. So users in the US have a very different privacy policy than users in the European Union. The European Union, of course, is reflective of the GDPR. The US, not so much, right? Different legal base. You're looking at this kind of compliance. I'm making sure that I'm protected against privacy. I haven't violated privacy in accordance to the law in any way. That's WhatsApp. It's a very risk-focused approach. Signal, on the other hand, works with end-to-end encryption. So Signal, from the very start, decided we are going to quite literally code for privacy. We're going to build an app that is completely reflective of this value of privacy. They're not focused necessarily on preventing risk and harms in accordance to compliance and regulation. They're looking more at how do I design? How do I design for privacy? It's called privacy by design or ethics by design, but how do I align with that value? So you start to see there is that different kind of mindset when it comes to that decision making. You're either going preventative, how do I prevent something from going wrong? Or you are looking at aligning, how do I make sure something's going right? Now, the last little part that I want to highlight here is, I don't know if you all remembered, about a year and a half ago in January, WhatsApp changed their privacy policy. That was on January 6th. By January 10th, Signal had experienced 7.5 million downloads, largest to date. So I just want you to sit with that and think, well, maybe the user base kind of likes the innovation side a little bit more. Might be a little bit preference there. And I use WhatsApp, to be clear. I actually use both of these, so I'm not saying one's better than the other, but I'm using this as a case to highlight the different decision-making when it comes to implementing our values. So we know now that ethics is a decision analysis tool. We understand that when it comes to making decisions around our technology, there's all of these different considerations that go into those decisions, and that when we add in that value layer, we are either asking ourselves, have I prevented things from going wrong, or have I aligned with things going right? Now, the last question that we need to answer here is, where are these decisions being made? Right? Well, there's 3 simple, easy layers here. And thankfully, this is also reflective, if you are ever putting together an ethics strategy, the 3 core layers of what an ethics strategy looks like. So let's start with our foundation, the people. What you're doing here, the decisions being made here, are around the fact of who is building your technology. Notice how I didn't start with what are you building. I started with who is building. At the core of everything, at the core of AI, at the core of data, at the core of our technology are the people. So unless your people are trained and educated and motivated and communicating on your values, then you will never actually be able to find any results on that technology layer. So when it comes to actually creating this strategy and the decisions around your people, you're looking for 3 simple things. You're looking for education, you're looking for motivation, and you're looking for communication. You want your people trained to be able to understand what these ethical values look like, how they look like in practice, different techniques for either preventing, protecting, or aligning and innovating on them. You want to make sure that your people are motivated in terms of, are their incentives aligned? It's incredibly frustrating to educate, say, an engineer on a new fairness metric, but then not give them space and motivation to implement that in their day-to-day workflow. So you want to make sure they're motivated, their incentives are aligned, and then communicating. You want to make sure that people actually have time and space to discuss. That creates that innovative spirit. That creates the point in time where you're able to look at the decisions, dive into them, and dissect them together. That's the people layer. Remember, educate, motivate, and communicate. After your people are in place, looking at those decisions there, you're moving on to the next layer. This one is process. So we looked at who is building your technology. Now we're looking at how are they building it. If you've noticed again, I have not said what they are building. We're looking at now how they're building. Your people are in place. You've made these decisions in order to ensure that your people are fully equipped to engage in ethics. Now you have to give them the process, the ability to do so. Here, you're looking at your intention, your implementation, and your instruments. What I mean by intention, do you have a responsible AI policy in place? Do you know what values your company is working with? Implementation, do you have frameworks? Is this part of your daily workflow? Have you enabled and pinpointed when and where this decision-making is happening? An instrument, do you have the right tools in place? Something as simple as a program that allows you to track and document decisions made throughout the development lifecycle. What you're doing with process is you're ensuring that you have set up a clear path for your people to be engaging in this decision-making process, pinpointing the times where they are asking themselves, hey, are we preventing risks or are we aligning with our values? Now, last but not least, is finally the tech. What are you building? You know who is building, you know how they're building, now you're looking at what are they building. And if you've noticed, this is the very top. This is the peak. What often happens with companies when they look to engage in responsible AI or ethics is they go here first. It's kind of like the Titanic. You know, you see the tip of the iceberg, you go for it, and then you understand and you realize, oh, I've missed a lot underneath the surface. The technology is the result of all of that work below. And the technology at the very end, we're looking at your data sources, we're looking at your documentation process, and we're looking at auditing your systems. All of these together create a holistic solution when it comes to implementing values into your technology. Ooh, I think this froze. So I want to focus again. People sit at the base. It's people process technology, not technology process people. Make sure your people are equipped with the tool of ethics. Make sure they understand. Make sure that you taught them like the second carpenter. Make sure that they understand what this tool is and how to use it. Then make sure they know they have the process for how to use it. They're given the block of wood and the nail and the hammer. And they're given a task to actually follow through with. And then at the very end, you reach the technology layer. It's the people process technology. Is everyone still with me? I know it's the afternoon, so I have to ask. So why are we doing any of this, right? Why does any of this matter? I know I'm a very passionate person. I know I can stand up here and rally you and say that this is all fantastic and amazing, but at the end of the day, I am also an entrepreneur, and I understand that you're sitting here going, this is cool, but why? Why do I care? Well, we've got the big dollar sign, which is a bit of a giveaway, but I could stand up here and I could list one after the next after next, the reasons for why responsible AI results in better quality teams, higher quality products, longer term success. I can list all of that. But instead, I want you to take away one word, and that's trust. Especially given the onset of generative AI, we are now dealing in an economy of trust. Can your customers trust you? That is what's going to determine if you have customers at the end of the day. If your customers don't trust you, you don't have customers. And the only way to have trust is to have values, is to be able to implement those ethics. Being able to utilize ethics as that decision analysis tool, that builds trust. And again, you can't have customers if you don't have trust. So this trust is the reason why this matters so much. And the reason why responsible AI really has become the future of success in artificial intelligence. So we're almost done. And I would like to take this last moment and ask for your undivided attention. Is it okay if I wander out of this spotlight? Okay. I want to come here, actually. So, oh, thank you. It's like, let there be light. Had all sorts of different fun technology things happening today. I want to take your attention for just 2 more minutes. Put your phones down, put thoughts out of your head. I like to focus on being human. So I want you to be human with me for just a few more moments. All the way back to ancient Greeks, which I love saying here, looking all the way back to our ancient Greeks, they taught us that the practice of ethics is the practice of pursuing the good life. whatever that good life may be for you. The commonality of it is that our good life is based off of our values. When we are in alignment with our values, we are living our good life. That's on the human level. We can translate that to our technology. That's when we start to ask ourselves, what would our technology look like if it aligned with our values, but also if it helped us in the pursuit of our own good lives? What if we actually engaged in ethics in the pursuit of good tech? Now, I am an ethicist, which means at the very heart, I am a philosopher. So I'm going to leave you with two questions. The first, I want you to ask yourself, what would this world look like if we designed not for our vices, but for our virtues? If we actually took everything that I went through today, all those different approaches to implementing values, what if we put that into action? Terrible timing. What would that look like? And second, are you brave enough to do what it takes to find out what that world would look like? Thank you.